Father of Speckle. Oh my God. It's the moment where we say cut because I'm going to call Matteo the mother of Speckle. No, you can probably keep this in if you want. I want to share my impression of that first message of Matteo. So there was a, because it's very funny. He has a profile picture of him. Yeah, like upside down. So basically what you see is just his beard.
I was tasked internally to look into a solution, developing a solution to enable exactly that. And that's when I think, I came across some of the first videos of Speckle online. So first thing I did was reaching out to Dim, but also ask my manager, well, this guy's doing this, it's open source, it's UCL, they're industry partners.
Let's hook up.
Can we just even schedule a meeting to collaborate? And
there was a bit of resistance.
There was a little bit of resistance.
I wanted to go back slightly, and when you guys were thinking about starting Speckle, like officially leaving the jobs wherever you were, what was your thinking?
Like Speckle is a platform for 3D data. That's what we call it. It has three main components. One is around essentially collaboration, communication, and automation. And this has been a kind of an evolution of the OG master plan that we had from the start.
True.
So like this random guy on LinkedIn adds me, like I check him out. He's working for a VC company in
actually
Boston,
focusing on construction.
And I'm like, oh shit. And I go to Matteo and I was like, hey, look.
What should I do?
What should I do? Matteo says, just message him. It's like, okay.
If you think about softwares like GitHub, what they enable, right, is a single central place for developers to store, access, and collaborate, on their code. And we're doing the same, but for the AEC industry.
Simply put, is the incentives of a user and the incentives of a vendor are not aligned. Like the vendor wants to extract more rent from its user base. The user base obviously wants more freedom to operate and to kind of hold that vendor accountable. So more essentially interoperability, more flexibility in dealing with their data. The vendor does not want to allow you that.
Hey guys. So welcome to, I guess this is another super series that we're doing. Well, not another one with you guys, but with Speckle. We're joined by Dimitri and Matteo for a 4-part series. So, in episode 1, we'll be focusing on an introduction to you two and a little touch on Speckle. So, I will hand over to whoever each of you wants to go first. Dimitri or Matteo?
The father of Speckle.
The father of Speckle. Oh my God. It's the moment where we say cut because I'm going to call Matteo the mother of Speckle. No, you can probably keep this in if you want. So, hi, I'm Dimitri. Originally from Romania. What else do you want from me in this intro?
Your early life, how?
Early life. It's a good life. My dad's an architect, so I studied architecture as well back in Bucharest. Moved out.
Why architecture?
Why? I was doing a lot of coding in high school, and I wanted to become what was called a creative coder, so doing interactive projections and so on. But my mom and dad said, there's no way you're going to make money with that, and definitely in Romania. So why don't you learn a cool trade like architecture, like your dad? So that's how I ended up studying architecture. I enjoyed it, to be honest, and kept coding throughout that time. Went to Delft to do my master's to learn how to code more for essentially the industry. And ended up giving workshops there, blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, was there like a, what I find always intriguing to ask people, and when you hear and listen to other, say, entrepreneurs speak, they speak about this one event in their life, which was like, hey, I sold sweets to all the younger kids at high school. Was that like an entrepreneurial venture you had when you were young?
Not really, actually. None of that, no. I was doing a bunch of like websites and coding up interactive Flash projections, if anybody remembers Flash.
Of
Matteo
course.
does,
Yeah.
yes.
So how old are you at the time? How old were you at the time?
Basically 14, 15, something like this. PHP, WordPress was hitting off, blogging was a thing.
And you did study some coding, right?
Yeah, quite.
So you had a little bit of a bug, inherent bug.
There was always a bug, yes.
Bug not in a bad bug, but.
And I think it depends on your career journey, but as an architect you always overwork. So you either overwork and become an entrepreneur, and then you're at least exposed to the upside, or you just overwork, which is maybe a very bleak way of putting this. I can nuance it more if people will throw tomatoes at me.
Were you a good student or very bad student?
I was a very efficient student. So basically, just to give you an example.
Smart and sneaky.
Yeah, exactly. Like, save the energy for when it matters. Like in high school, like 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, like I almost got expelled twice because I was keeping too much class. But then I got top grades in my class on the baccalaureate, the final exams at whatever, A-levels or whatever.
So you were efficient.
Yes, exactly. And then also for uni, there's like in Romania, there's a very tough entry exam. Like there's like a 6-hour drawing exercise that you need to sit in and blah, 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 descriptive geometry, draw perspective from a floor plan kind of stuff. So quite complicated. And everybody thought I'd do average, but then again, I saved my energy and I got in first. So like, take that.
Would Matteo describe you as efficient in your current role as CEO?
Good question. I'm eagerly waiting the answer.
Definitely, I think that's a trait of both of us.
He's being kind.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, something we always try to do. Maybe we'll talk about it later, but try to cut, the extra fat or work or anything that's not essential. So trying to be as efficient and streamlined as possible.
We're still learning that, or
Still
at least
learning.
I am.
Still
Yeah.
highest grades through the lowest possible class.
It helps being lazy.
Yeah. So from school to architect, and let's maybe fast forward a little bit to some of your experience. You were working as an architect, and then you went to UCL to do PhD.
Yeah, and actually,
Before that, if you can say a little bit about first experience working as an architect at that time.
I did some small work for my dad back in the day, but working as an architect, actually, it was one of the turning points. Those 3 years. It was kind of a long turning point, but cut me some slack. It was the crisis moment post 2011. So it gave me quite a bit of an epiphany because I came into the industry like this very young kid with bright eyes, knowing how to code, Grasshopper, computational design, that's going to win the world. I'm going to revolutionize this thing. And then I could never get a job in one of the fancy offices like Zaha's or UN Studio, like doing double curve stuff where kind of like most of what I knew would have been applied. So I ended up in this very tidy office in Brussels doing very normal buildings. In a sense, normal in quotes, very beautiful buildings, but again, like none of that exuberance of pre-crisis mode. And like all the skills that I had there kind of fell flat because, hey, these are square buildings. We're designing beautiful apartments, very livable stuff. But like all the computational magic that you learned was like not really getting applied anywhere or in very minimal places, or the tools were not geared towards that. And still the process was very inefficient and so on. So I realized that kind of like my whole life up to there, I was gearing up to kind of optimize away the wrong thing to a certain extent. And that's and luck propelled me to UCL later.
And they didn't want to use the tech, or they were not able to use the tech, or there was no mindset? What was the reason for people not using like any technology in design?
It's complicated, but I think, Juana and Leo, the managers of that office, they were very astute people. They would use technology when it would help them, right? Deliver a better design. Only to deliver a better design, you don't need more computational power always. So then there was an inherent skepticism, there's all that stuff, but it was healthy for me, and I think it's also for that office as well. You can end up doing very stupid things if you use computers, right?
Unrealistic.
Sorry?
Unrealistic, perhaps.
Unrealistic, responding to the wrong things, getting caught off by aesthetics, and essentially not resolving the real problem, which is people need to work or live in this thing. It's a city, it needs to breathe, it needs parking spots. You need to negotiate with the mayor to push through. You need to resist value engineering, or you need to control the value engineering process in a very smart way. Like, C#, Grasshopper technology won't help you there. Communication and talking to people does help you there. So this is kind of, I guess you guys as constructors, you know this probably 10 times better than me.
Which part?
The value engineering part and dealing maybe with architects.
You mentioned detail that you learned all of this computational stuff, wanted to work for someone like Zaha, but then never got to you actually use that when you went into your career as an architect. Is that like a common occurrence with people that train to be architects? They perhaps think they're going to be designing these beautiful buildings and then go and be typing door schedules for their...
I don't want to trash the whole educational scene. So I don't know, like I think Matteo can answer this question as well after me if he wants to. But in short, yes, but that's a good thing. Like you get to be creative and flex your brain in school, even though after school the reality of life is a bit different. I think it's still important you have that freedom and that creativity instilled into you in, let's say, the 6 years of training that you get in school. Because otherwise you definitely won't get it from real life.
Should we move to UCL?
Yeah, and so UCL, what year was this?
Just before Brexit, 2015.
And I think this is quite an important detail because based on previous discussions we had, this PhD that you created is sort of like the foundation of Speckle, where we are today.
Yep, in a sense, yes.
The seed of Speckle.
The seeds of Speckle, yeah. It was a very funny moment, and this is where Matteo comes in the picture as well. That's when I met him. But essentially, UCL was an exercise in, there was a call out. The construction industry, or like AEC in general, is fucked. There's all this digital magic. What's wrong with it, right? And then I submitted, hey guys, I think I know what's wrong with it. I can help you unpack this. And somehow the people over at the Bartlett said, okay, this guy's got a good idea. Why don't you come over? The interview process was funny. It involved some, philosophical discussions and so on, but it worked out. And yeah, that's where it was an environment in which kind of I was getting paid by European Union money. It was a Marie Curie fellowship, so you would get paid to do research, and you would also have a budget to make that research as applied as you wanted to. Like some people bought robots and did all sorts of crazy stuff around manufacturing. I was just buying servers of a cloud provider to host the very first versions of Speckle.
Nice.
So,
what was it meant to be at the time, like when you were pitching it to the school?
it went through a bunch of iterations. So originally I pitched the question. I reformulated their question and I said, hey guys, this is a communication question. This is not a technology question. And we need to start from that angle. And then I underpinned that with a bit of technology, which is what the really earliest versions of Speckle were, which would be able just enabling people to share 3D models easier than before, right, in a viewer online. That was the very basic V-100 of Speckle, something like this. And then it kept going through a bunch of iterations where okay, there's design space exploration, there's all sorts of things. When you have many design options, you need to evaluate them across parameters, so there's a bit of exploration in that regard. But as things kind of were narrowing down, Speckle became much more focused on a kind of purely data communication layer rather than a product in itself. Mm-hmm. And this is when I also met Matteo to a certain extent.
What was how did you guys cross? What was the...
I think I reached out in the first place, right?
Yeah.
At the time I was working in a company that was looking into solving the same problem essentially. And I was developing in an in-house tool to essentially help them exchange data across different software. And I think I saw, the first time was I saw a video of Speckle from Dimitri on YouTube, and I was like, whoa, if this guy's building the same thing I'm doing internally. It does look more polished, but maybe I had some other components that the Speckle didn't have. So first thing I did was I joined their Slack group. There was already a Slack channel, and I pinged Dimitri. I was like, dude, I'm doing something very similar. Maybe we could meet up and chat and see if there's any opportunities for collaboration.
What year was it when you joined the
When
chat?
was it?
We found a screenshot, 2017 or 16, something like this.
Yeah.
And I want to share my impression of that first message of Matteo. So there was a, because it's very funny. He has a profile picture of him.
Had.
Yeah, like upside down. So basically what you see is just his beard. Like, and you have to imagine, like I've never seen or heard of Matteo at this point. And then suddenly I get a DM from this beard.
It was
like, hey dude, blah, 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 shall we meet up? So it was
It was like a picture of an Italian comedian.
really? Okay.
Was that the year that beards were trendy?
Hey man, beards are still trendy.
Always trendy, right?
It's just me and Martin that are behind the times.
East of Europe. Here.
Exactly.
Yeah, true,
You're
maybe.
the one who looks slovenly. Yes.
Should we chat a little bit about Matteo and his beginning?
All right. I feel like, when we do the intros to investors, we always have this prepared blurb, but I can go a bit more in detail now.
Yes, please, come on. Otherwise, you're going to see me miming in the back.
But yeah, in a way, similar background to Dimitri. So I studied architecture and engineering back in Italy. I think I graduated in 2013. And I don't know why I picked architecture as a field of study. To be honest, I was very split between that and computer science when I finished high school, and I opted for architecture. I think because in Italy it's a combined practice, at least the one I attended, of architecture and engineering. So it wasn't just purely, architectural practice and design, but there was some more technical bits. So I went there, but I've always been drawn by the more technological side of things, and especially I couldn't be bothered by drawing things by hand 1,000 times if they were the same, or doing the same calculations over and over. So I taught myself how to code while I was there. I did some websites, some WordPress theme development.
It's funny.
And I also started creating some utilities to help me on my day-to-day. So I remember a little Flash tool that would calculate the momentum of structures or beams, again to save me time on my day-to-day. Another small app, again, I think in Flash, to help urban planning and cost estimation and zoning, these kind of things. And I started to enjoy that part more and more. So at the end of my studies, I did a thesis on project validation using BIM, and as part of that, I also developed a small utility. It was a Revit add-in at the time. And that got me onto my first job, which was at Case Design, based in New York, a BIM consulting firm. They were actually researching exactly the topic of my thesis, this BCF format, and that got me my first job there, and that's where everything started more from a professional point of view.
So both were efficient.
It's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, I think that was my motto, minimum effort for the maximum result.
Is it still the same way?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean, that it's being lazy. It's utilizing that extra time that you get to learn or just, explore other things.
Yeah.
You've been doing also web design at some point.
Yeah, so that's when I was still at uni. It was a bit of a side gig, so really teaching myself how to code, but making some money on the side and
resourceful.
Yeah.
Bootstrapping.
So you were doing something similar too, Dimitri?
I think, that period was the period of WordPress theme development and ActionScript. So, yeah, the internet was younger than it is now.
But it's funny because I remember maybe my parents would say, but why are you spending so much time, doing these things? You should maybe do something more related to your own field of, architecture, engineering. But, instead that was super helpful to get me where, I was over the years and where I am now.
The parents pushing you down like the academic, sensible route.
Yes, exactly.
What's interesting is both of you come from architecture, but then kind of went your ways into technology, like design technology or IT kind of technology, right?
Yeah.
Computer-aided design, or probably that's it. So,
So I can see the paths aligning between you two, but I have to ask: was there a part in your early life where the entrepreneurial bug bit, perhaps before web design, like selling sweets to young?
Yeah, I think there were a few episodes, but always it was, very small. I think we had a T-shirt
Oh, wow.
business at some point.
Really? That's why we got all this merch.
Customized yeah, maybe.
That makes sense.
Yes. It was like funny T-shirts with a theme on architecture and engineering. We were selling them
Nice.
around university. We did a small rendering gig where we would just do very nice renderings for clients for a couple of years. The website design, and I guess a few of the tools or products that I developed in the past could also be seen as part of that.
Very good.
So you meet in 2017.
Yeah, 16,
You
17.
see his bird. You
I
like
see
it?
his beard. Yeah, there's more to that story, and this is where.
Oh, we can go deeper. Yeah.
Yeah. So, shall we lay it thick?
Go.
Let's do it.
So, basically, the project that I was in at UCL was a quite wide European research project. One of my industry partners in there, because I had a bunch of industry partners, including McNeil, the makers of Rhino, which is a widely software, but there was also Matteo's company at the time. I can't remember if we agreed to say names or no. I think
Maybe
said no.
we don't
Yes.
need to.
You can say we'll beep it.
Okay.
Well, let's just do a quick
Yeah.
step back. The company was relying or investigating the use of another solution called Flux. Flux used to be a startup that originated from Google X, so an incubator, and it did something quite similar to what Speckle does nowadays. So it helped with these data exchanges across different softwares, and Foster's was investigating, looking to rely on them, but all of a sudden Flux stopped existing. Pivoted. So I was tasked internally to look into a solution, developing a solution to enable exactly that. And that's when I think, I came across some of the first videos of Speckle online. So first thing I did was reaching out to Dim, but also ask my manager, well, this guy's doing this, it's open source, it's UCL, they're industry partners.
Let's hook up.
Can we just even schedule a meeting to collaborate? And
There was a bit of resistance.
there was a little bit of resistance. So that
From
didn't-
what side?
from the, let's say, the corporation where I was employed. And I think it just boils down to the mindset of doing things in-house, demonstrating, I don't know what, skills and excellence in a field that is not really their main core domain.
Yes.
And so, we were not allowed to, I was not allowed to even speak with him, but out of work hours, right? I could, and that's how we met up in the first place, right?
Yeah, I think, we got together at the pub in Clapham, next to your place, if I remember correctly.
Exchanged a few beers, we
Yeah.
ranted a bit, and at the time, Speckle, if I'm correct, only consisted in a Grasshopper plugin, or maybe Rhino as well?
Rhino and Grasshopper.
Rhino and Grasshopper.
Yeah, and the online viewer, but that was it, I think.
That was it, and what was really missing at the time was a Dynamo connector, which would have gone hand in hand with the Grasshopper one, so I started working on that outside work hours, so that was purely on my free time, open source contribution to this super cool project. And that kept going for how long?
Well, you left, you joined Arup.
Right, so
Yeah.
while that was happening, I moved to Arup, a large engineering company, in their London office, and they had a different view on Speckle. They were also relying a bit on Flux at the time, and they saw in Speckle the opportunity for an open source, transparent, solution. So they allowed me to spend time working on it, and
More, actually, because you also plugged me in there once research money ran out.
exactly.
And actually, this is mega hat tip to Arup. They
Absolutely.
understood open source and they interacted with it on fair terms. So this is something back then quite rare.
Yeah.
Yeah,
actually.
it sounds to me like you were building Speckle on the boss's dollar.
Pretty much, yes.
Why was it even a problem, that data exchange? Why is it a problem?
Oh, where
Let's,
to start?
Industry context.
On the high level.
Yeah.
Keep it high level in this one.
Well, like as engineers or architects, basically our designs we draw on computers, everything happens. It ends up in ultimately a proprietary file format that you need to pay someone to access later, right? And as data verticalization happens more and more, you realize as a person, as a company, as a small office, as a large office, that this is yours, but you don't have access to it, right, anymore. Or like you are kind of continuously beholden to someone else to have access to it. And this undermines kind of your raison d'etre. When you draw on paper, at least you own that paper, right?
And nowadays, in the life cycle of a project, medium, large size, there's so many different trades and softwares and disciplines being involved. So you have a variety of maybe 10, 20 or more different softwares being used, different proprietary formats, and none of these is really talking with each other.
So just to unpack yours slightly, Dimitri. So as an architect drawing on a piece of software, they don't own that data. The software owns the data.
You own the data, but you can't access it because it's in a proprietary file format.
You need a license, right?
You need a license to.
So
to
you've
read
done
it.
all the work, but it's never actually yours.
Yeah, a bit hostage, right?
Simple, let's say you're using Revit. You stop using Revit, you can't
I think
access
I have
the
a
data.
good analogy for this. So as a software provider, you are inventing a car with, for example, triangular wheels. And then there's another software provider who is inventing their car with square wheels. And these two cars have their own paths, but you can't drive with the square wheels on the triangular wheels.
No, you need a special track for either of them,
Yes,
right?
that's the problem.
And then I think there's a deeper problem as well, because this data, there's nuances to it, but because it's so locked in, it essentially nukes all kind of like normal human conversation around like, hey, where the fuck did you put that column, right? Ah, shit, it's in the middle of my living room now.
That's a feature.
Yeah, and then like, okay, can you shift it? No, I'll shift the sofa, whatever. All these kind of like normal conversational exchanges or communicative exchanges now have a super high friction cost because here's my Revit file. I don't have Revit. Can you export it as IFC, and then you import it into ArchiCAD, and suddenly something that should take literally seconds to exchange takes hours, emails and gigabytes of clunky files around.
We'll dive into that.
Yeah.
We'll dive into that.
I wanted to go back slightly, and when you guys were thinking about starting Speckle, like officially leaving the jobs wherever you were, what was your thinking?
Well,
Was it scary, or was you were confident that you want to do it? And
It took us a while to get there. I think maybe it crossed our minds individually, but we never discussed that. I think in the first years at Arup, at least, we saw Speckle as something that needed to exist, and we were both super excited to keep working on it and contributing. We saw the traction of end users, the community, early developers adopting the solution, but we still thought, well, we can just keep doing that a bit on the side, maybe 50% of my time, a bit more from DIMS, and it'll keep growing that way. But what happened? What was the trigger?
I think after a point where both Matteo and myself are not made up for corporate life. Let's put it like this. We, from a rather underpaid, research position, in Arup, being lavishly paid to do, software development, which is what I love doing for the industry. It was difficult for me to kind of bring up that courage to say, okay, get rid of these golden shackles in a sense. But I think we reflected at each other kind of our frustrations and essentially the pace at which Speckle was being developed, and we knew we can go faster, we knew we can do more.
Yeah, there were also a bit of conflicting interest, right?
Obviously.
Having one employer paying for most of the development meant they could influence a bit the roadmap, they could say no to things, but we wanted Speckle to address the needs of everyone in the industry, even potential competitors of our employer at the time. So we felt like the box that was given to us started feeling
we were outgrowing it, yeah. And to be fair to Arup, this was not an Arab problem. This was an optics problem from the rest of the industry looking in on Speckle, saying basically like, okay, you guys are both working for Arabs, so Speckle is Arabs. And we're like, no, it's open source. Look, MIT license, please read it. It says, in short, do whatever the fuck you want with it. It's not Arabs. You can literally take it and do whatever. I know, but it's... And we tried explaining that, and that was kind of blocking adoption, and it was kind of making Speckle, limiting its impact. And that's kind of what triggered us to go out of it. We didn't really know at the beginning what we're going to do. We thought it's probably going to be consultancy. Yeah. Truth be told, when we first started talking about this, we thought...
Bootstrapping.
Architectural, tech-enabled consultancy, kind of? Or
basically, yeah. I mean, there were a bunch of people using Speckle, asking us a lot of questions all the time. So we thought maybe we can start asking for money in exchange of answers. So.
Did you get any funding at that time? Or that came out, you just bootstrap it?
Yeah, I was going to say, like, obviously, jumping ship, how did you fund your life?
Yeah.
Did you have money?
Did you like stack some cash for a few months and then, okay, we're leaving?
We stacked some, or I did for sure.
That was, I guess just normal savings, but we did, I think, we did have maybe a couple of conversations with investors before leaving that encouraged us, that told us there's a way. Open source doesn't mean it's, it's just free and charitable work. It can be monetized. Commercial open source is a viable business model. So a lot of these thoughts, started going through our heads. We did the research. We looked at other successful open source companies, how they've done things. And I think the most helpful thing at the time was really speaking with investors. At the beginning, I was personally a bit afraid, an investor, what are they going to want to do? The sharks. No, but actually they want to help you. They want to see you succeed. So it was super helpful to have conversation with, a variety of them. Each of would introduce us to two or three. So, lots of conversations, and we learned so much. Like, we had no idea what our go-to-market strategy was, what a pitch deck looked like, and we started understanding. We can do this. We can get some funding. We can, start.
Or maybe this is going to happen in a sense.
Exactly.
Right?
Was Speckle making money at the time?
No.
No, nothing.
But what you did have was, by the sounds of it, a bit of a community already built, people interested. So you're like, okay, you also probably offset some risk by saying you have potential customers waiting.
It was usage.
Exactly, yes.
We had organizations relying on Speckle. We had developers adopting it. So there was traction, definitely. Some very positive signals.
Yeah. What was the most, the biggest misconception that you kind of demystified when dealing with investors?
Oh, where to start? It's been a journey, and we still are on that journey to a certain extent, so it's difficult to say.
But at that time?
Probably open source, no?
Yeah, I mean, if it's demystify for investors, definitely open source. Like, it took us a while to find a reliable partner that understood essentially community, understood open source, understood why it's important that Speckle is and remains open source. It took a long while to get there, and it took a long while to also make people understand that Speckle's not Photoshop for construction, which is like a completely different game.
So it sounds like an investor might have said that to you at some point.
Is it or is it like Photoshop for construction?
Oh yeah.
It's got layers, and
It's funny. After 2 minutes, you speak with an investor, you see if they understand what you're doing or completely off the wrong track.
Yes.
So that was 2020 or before?
That was 2020, yeah. I do want to share with you actually the moment we first spoke with an investor, because we almost didn't. So we almost were never on this track.
True.
So like this random guy on LinkedIn adds me, like I check him out. He's working for a VC company in
actually
Boston.
Focusing on construction.
And I'm like, oh shit. And then I go to Matteo and I was like, hey, look.
What should I do?
What should I do? Matteo says, just message him. It's like, okay. And I message him, and then that's how we make our first pitch deck.
He won't bite, right?
Yeah, but he didn't bite. And
how was the first pitch deck then? Was it online or face to face?
No, online.
Oh, so
We-
you pitched to them? To that?
We pitched to them. That was early 2020, beginning of COVID. So
Was
I
this your
think-
first pitch?
Oh yeah.
Ah, yeah, nice. So you were like really
I think
nervous.
he was expecting a deck, but the first time we didn't have any, so we met a second time. We prepared a few slides. He helped us. He coached us a bit, into preparing a base pitch deck. He sent us a few intros, and then everything started.
From there. Yeah.
Did he invest? No.
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 Why?
Because they were US based. And essentially, like good investors, actually, they look around their network and how they can support their companies. And if they realize, okay, it's a company I really want to invest in, but I cannot support you meaningfully in your location,
Yeah.
they will tell you that.
I think a lot of the early rejections were around, that misconception around open source. Some investors used to get it very well, and some didn't really understand how we could, make a profitable business model on top of open source. Some also were discouraged by the fact that we had no revenue, despite, being, at basically a pre-seed stage. So
Also, I think founder credentials, we didn't have them.
zero.
Yeah.
It was a steep learning curve, for sure.
I'm very curious. So you go to a company's house, you set up a, I guess, limited company, whatever
Yes,
it was.
Companiesmadesimple.com.
It's not affiliate.
Yes, sorry. This is, yeah.
We'll get 'em. We'll get a little sponsorship right here in this episode.
Good.
How do you this define, like, what is your role? What is your role?
We didn't really, there's so much to do in Speckle. So that,
Yeah.
I think
Up to last year, we didn't have,
different
titles.
titles,
so
yeah.
just-
And we only split up as COO and CEO because, I enjoy talking to investors more than Matteo does, and he's happy to throw me under that bus. So
yeah, I like to take more maybe care of chores and other operational things.
Which one of you is more technical? Like software technical?
I think both of us.
Both of us, but Tim, I think, is taking more the the lead there for sure.
It's very funny that you ask us these questions, but it's literally until 1 year ago there was not really much of a difference.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've quit, and it's like day one. And where were you? Where you were in someone's kitchen with a laptop each, or?
Yeah, that was it's a super strange story. It's a bit surreal because we gave in our notice, and then the leaving party was being planned.
You had a leaving party?
Yeah, we did, but it was supposed to be in
They
real
really
life
like
at the
you
Tower
Tavern, yeah.
Tower Tavern, pub next to under the BT Tower. But then the first wave of COVID actually became a thing. So we had a online leaving party. This was so strange.
Microsoft Teams leaving party.
Yeah, so we were looking forward to, cheers with Barwick and all the others at the pub, and
Nope.
nothing.
Wow.
And then we also closed our, basically within those early COVID panic moments, we also closed our pre-seed round.
Nice.
And I couldn't meet with Matteo until I don't know, 2 months later, 3 months later, in Primrose Hill, socially distanced, to celebrate.
With masks on?
But the first employees
Yes.
we hired were, entirely remote. We didn't have a chance. Well,
That was before pre-seed or after?
before.
Before.
Yes,
No.
How could you
Oh, no.
afford?
No, after pre-seed.
that was after.
After,
Sorry.
okay.
Yeah.
I think the first person we hired, Izzy, we knew her, we had worked with her, but I don't know if we've ever met her in person.
I did meet her in person, because she came, we did. She
We
came
did.
for the Speckle evening.
True.
show,
It was
yeah.
a very short
Beforehand.
Moment.
What was the role?
software engineer.
Do everything at Speckle.
Yeah.
Engineer. Yeah.
Build Speckle.
Yes, kind of.
And the same applies to, I think, 3 or 4 more of the other first hires.
Yeah, so Easy we knew actually, but Alan we didn't, Claire we didn't, we just met online dating, essentially.
And yeah.
What was the first thing you guys wanted to after this pre-seed? What did you want to achieve? What was the first? Okay, we need to go there. We need to do this.
Yeah.
Well, we knew all the bad parts of 1.0, so we made 2.0 better.
It was a massive rewrite almost from scratch of everything we'd done before. We kept a few things, but we wanted to start clean. So I think the connectors, the web app, were starting
Yeah.
from scratch again.
Yeah, we needed to unblock some, let's say, foundational technical debt that existed in 1.0.
Mhm.
So now that we had money in the bank, that's the first thing we did.
Because you saw that it's not scalable, that software stack that you had, or there were some other reasons like...
It was scalable, but it was not really sustainable and not really a nice, I think, developer product experience. And this was, we're dog fooding, so we're the consumers of our own code. And if that itches the wrong way and you have the opportunity to remove that itch, that's what we did.
I guess to some extent you're trying to build it whilst employed, lots of other things going on, so you're just hacking it together, right, making it work. And now you've got a bit of money and a clean slate, you may as well
Exactly.
Yes.
almost restart.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Why Speckle? Why is it called Speckle?
Actually, a good question.
Uh,
Is it the right blue we have?
It's pretty close.
yeah, the blue, it's... Oh, why Speckle? I mean...
Do you want the true story or?
We want the PR polished story.
So there's no PR polished story. I'm looking at Senda, she's in the background there, she's singing. Basically, there is a tradition, right?
Okay.
That we spread misinformation around the origin of Speckle, the actual name.
Fake news.
Exactly. So one of the nice stories of why Speckle, it's because Speckle was the name of Henry VIII's favorite sheep that he liked petting.
Sheep.
Favorite sheep.
Yes. They're all very surreal. The real story doesn't give much satisfaction
Okay,
either.
2 seconds. You said Henry VIII,
Yeah.
sheep and petting.
Yes.
In one, yeah.
Yeah.
My imagination's going a bit wild.
AKA Speckle, right?
and it was a blue sheep. Just to clarify.
Obviously, yes. And the real story actually doesn't give much more satisfaction than the fake ones that we're spreading around. So Speckle V-100 was a Grasshopper plugin. There's a tradition for Grasshopper plugins to be called like animals, like kangaroo, whatnot, parakeet, and so on. And I was trying to find an animal that was not taken as a Grasshopper plugin. So I thought of a polar bear. But then polar bear plugin doesn't sound too nice. So then I thought polar bears, they have basically their fur is like fiber optic, and their skin is black. And then I thought fiber optic toys, those things that you had as a kid that like Speckle. Speckle.
Speckle.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Shall we go on to just a
Probably.
high-level overview? Speckle then?
Maybe before that, so let's just say a year ago you kind of formally shift responsibilities to a degree. What kind of learnings do you guys, are you guys on a journey of when like shifting to these roles, and how difficult it is, or maybe it's not difficult at all, or maybe it's not that formal?
I think inevitably we reach a stage where we realize we need to add more structure. It's
Yeah.
not just structure, it's also we need to scale ourselves a bit more.
What was the checking point that's the stage that we need to do it?
So I think pretty much like this January, after we raised our A round, right, we were doing kind of growth work a lot. But it was never formalized as a team in and of itself, and that's kind of like half of the work that we do as a company is that. So that's kind of the divide that we naturally happened to a certain extent.
Until then, we were both heavily involved in engineering, product, kind of split on web and connectors.
Evangelism, investor relationships,
yeah.
website design.
So it's a way to to structure your organization to perform better in different areas. And so Dimitri now is taking more a lot on the product and engineering. I'm helping head the growth team and a lot of other operational things. That's a bit the split that we have at the moment.
Just curious, as well as we're talking about roles slightly, your team is fully remote as far as I understand.
Correct.
Are you going to do a Amazon and make everyone come to the office 5 days a week from next Monday?
No, probably not.
It's quite tricky considering that we're distributed across Europe. So I don't know how many different countries, but maybe 10 or more.
Wow.
Enough countries, yes.
And that's a consequence of us starting as a distributed company because of COVID, but we found that that's quite key for us to be able to find the right talent, and it's quite hard, right, to find people that know the AEC industry, know how to code, and for us, having a wider market, was definitely key in succeeding there.
At the beginning, definitely, yes. I think, there was a very nice response to essentially the Amazon, strong arming everybody now in 5 days a week, like from a company called Linear, that we admire a lot. Basically, we were born as a distributed company, in a sense. It does add friction. If I would start another company, I wouldn't necessarily do it as a remote company again.
Why not?
It's a business complexity axis that if you don't have, you're good to not have it. But since we've started like this, we've overcome the challenges that come with this, right? I mean, we're constantly iterating and finding ways of doing it better. We are investing a lot of time in real life moments.
Yeah.
Money, we encourage people to get together. There's essentially a field trip budget to hey, let's all get together to work on one specific project for a week or whatever it takes to get stuff done. So it's ultimately, if your company is not set up to do this, then it's a problem. If you are culturally and let's say infrastructurally set up to be a distributed company, you're good to go.
You need to invest time and resources. You need to make it part of your culture. And another important point, it's not for everyone, right? We unfortunately had very good employees. They left the company because it wasn't for them, right?
Yeah.
They needed that physical interaction, fully distributed wasn't their ideal setup. There's advantages and disadvantages. I think on this I might disagree with Dim. I think for me it's what I enjoy more. I think it gives me more advantages of working from wherever I want, flexibility on many different things.
You're from Italy. You can see got beautiful mountains, lakes,
Exactly.
beaches. In London, what can you do?
Well, you have beautiful places in the UK. Isn't it?
Makes complete sense. Okay, fine. Shall we high-level overview of Speckle then? So, explain. Let's go very, very basic. Like introduction to what Speckle is. So, what is it? What problem are you solving? And then I think as we go through this series, particularly in the next episode, we will go a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
Perhaps more the technically minded people amongst us. So.
Okay. Well, I'll start high level and then drill down into some basic statements, hopefully. Like Speckle is a platform for 3D data. That's what we call it. It has 3 main components. One is around essentially collaboration, communication, and automation. And this has been a kind of an evolution of the OG master plan that we had from the start. But simply put, what it, at a very basic level, does, it makes data accessible to anybody. You work in Revit, you press a button, I can receive that data in Rhino and work against it or with it and coordinate with it.
So typically an architect would work or a designer would work on multiple, like you mentioned Revit, Rhino, whatever.
And the team works in multiple places and multiple contexts, and let's not forget that the team is not just architects and engineers with access to specialist software, it's also like these people called clients, have money and have fancy tablets, but they don't have Revit running on their machines, but they do want to essentially see a Power BI dashboard of like, where is this design going? All right, this is what Speckle kind of helps you achieve, which is liberate this data and then enabling you to put it and kind of use it effectively with whoever you want to use it.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we're kind of rebranding it to be more data hub.
Yeah.
Rather than platform is, it's much more easy concept to grasp. And if you think about software like GitHub, what they enable, right, is a single central place for developers to store, access, and collaborate, on their code. And we're doing the same, but for the AEC industry. We just have an additional challenge that we're not, working on lines of text, but we have 3D data, metadata, and very complex softwares that generate this sort of information. So that's an additional challenge on us to solve.
Well, just a question. Why software providers did not agree, or through the association of AEC software provider. There's nothing like that, obviously.
There's a bunch of them, but yeah.
We will be coding our software so everyone can. So that's our kind of file that we will be using. Yeah.
Because lock-in is the name of the game. So
Many reasons, I think. One is a lot of these big vendors grew by acquisition. So they bought small businesses that we know, like Revit, which is the main software offering from Autodesk, was an independent software provider back then, and they never made the effort to integrate it with the rest of their ecosystem. So now users of Autodesk and Revit and AutoCAD, they prefer using Speckle to exchange data than maybe native solutions that come from Autodesk. That's because they never invested in that.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I mean,
I don't know.
simply put, is the incentives of a user and the incentives of a vendor are not aligned. Like the vendor wants to extract more rent from its user base. The user base obviously wants more freedom to operate and to kind of hold that vendor accountable. So more essentially interoperability, more flexibility in dealing with their data. The vendor does not want to allow you that. And there are, like building smart, there are common formats, file formats that essentially the industry theoretically has centralized on, but there are specifications which then the vendors need to implement. So they always kind of trip each other up by badly implementing them. It's a rigged game, in short.
And let's not forget that it's ancient software we're talking about. Revit is 25 years old and AutoCAD more than 40. So it's also not simple technically to achieve as a.
I also guess like if the software is 25 years old, then there must be some technical inherited issues to modify it right now or to add to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
So I guess some file formats would have constraints based on the fact that they've been developed for a very long time. And there's not much you can add to it, not much you can innovate on, right?
I don't really think that statement is true because, ultimately, if you are a large AC vendor, you have endless money, right?
You don't want.
It's a matter of investing that money in doing something better for the users that people just, they got away without doing. And to the extent, I think if you dive into the history of the DWG file format, like what AutoCAD saves its stuff to, there's been endless lawsuits and monopoly threatening issues in the US for that format to become even slightly open, right? Wow. There's the Open Design Alliance, essentially the ODA, that came to be to reverse engineer that file format. And that's a huge kind of organization, that a lot of the industry depends on to be able to parse and read DWG file formats.
So they were not successful, I guess.
They are successful, but it's still one very weird way of success that actually it's not
helping the industry progress.
No,
for sure.
No. Yes.
And here I would like to plug in our mission because we're developing Speckle as open source because it's something the industry needs, but ultimately our broader mission is to make the AC industry better. And Speckle is a vehicle for us, to achieve that. But there's many other ways in which we're trying to get there. I think in the next episodes we'll talk about that as well.
Mm-hmm. So what's the, I guess, just as I'm quite a layman for this topic. So as a not potential user, but maybe a user of Speckle. How does it work for me as just say I'm an architect at a large firm and someone's like, you got to use Speckle, and I'll be like, well, why?
He just graduated and he wants to learn.
A lot of people graduate knowing Speckle now, which is encouraging for us, yes.
We'll get to that.
I told you earlier, indoctrination at early stages.
Yes, it's good. Yes, we don't want to call it indoctrination, but so basically you'd use it to exchange data with your team. That's what I would say. Or you'd use it to essentially publish the status of your current design process and make it transparent to other stakeholders.
Yeah.
Right? So that someone down the line can, keep that costing estimate accurate. And rather than them doing it every month or so, they're doing it in real time.
And so obviously that cannot currently be done.
I mean, with a lot of intern labor,
it can be done. I think the main, let's say, alternatives to Speckle are usually in-house tools the companies develop, create. It could be Grasshopper, Dynamo, or more complex
After the
scripts.
sport or something.
Maybe using third-party tools to help them streamline data exchanges across A to B, but there are always very tailored solutions. Most of the times they're still desktop-based, not web-based. Most of the times they're hacky, project-based, specific to a use case. And Speckle instead comes in as general solution that you can apply, tailor to your needs. Lots of people create workflows on top of Speckle. That's also what we're trying to incentivize. So really creating, utilizing, for overcoming, challenges and saving time, exchanging data, exchanging information, and so on.
Maybe last question.
You start.
Why did you choose this? Why did you decide to go all in? Make this your life mission for the next, at least, I don't know, 5-10 years maybe?
Because it gave us a chance to make the AC industry better. And to a certain extent, like both of us as, let's say, professionals in the AC industry, we felt a lot of frustration in the day-to-day. And we see a lot of people having that frustration in the day-to-day. And design is cool. It's a cool industry to be in. It's like everything that fucking gets built goes through our hands. Why does it have to suck so much working in this industry?
Yeah,
so
Speckle is in a way a way for us to scratch our own itches, right? Thinking back at the time at my employer back then, I wasn't allowed to contribute to Speckle. I wasn't allowed to publish any of the technologies I was developing internally. So I felt like the industry was just stagnating, and nothing good was coming out of it. And for us, Speckle is a vehicle to help everybody modernize and progress, and at the same time we do something cool. We're having fun.
Yes, totally.
So is it just simple mission, exchange of data between software, or there is a scope for potential other things around that?
You can see that as a communication between machines, but between humans as well. And the data, the models, that are part of it are what gets exchanged.
There's another kind of like, when I was working in Brussels, like the best projects that I worked on were the ones that I could have a direct conversation with the developer basics at the time, right? Like the guy would come in and we would go out for a cigarette break together, whatever.
But it needs to be easy, right?
And it needs to be easy and informal, or formal but easy anyway. There needs to be not that much friction. And that made it a very pleasurable process, right? The other projects that you work on, and there's this whole bureaucratic mess of if I want to send you as the contractor an email, I have to go through 5 RABA manuals to understand what and export 5 IFC files in whatever.
Which you can't change because which you can't change because there is you can't edit our file because
exactly. Yes, I need to draw over, redraw it. Yes, it becomes a mess, and it
10,000 pounds task, which should take 5 minutes.
Absolutely, yeah. Not to mention many other not that pleasurable exercises. So, in a sense, I think both of us, we saw the AC industry as kind of a very exciting place that is not exciting for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And we set out to fix those reasons, right? The best way we can.
Okay, guys, very nice way to end it. So that's the end of episode 1. And in episode 2, we'll be diving a little bit deeper into Speckle, talking about mostly your fundraising journey, the product and business model.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I was in Brussels working, blah, 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 all nice and good. We got structural engineer plans, blah, blah, blah. I said 3 people were working based off that, which they were encoding what will get demolished and what not. So we're doing these pixel perfect apartment layouts, luxurious flats, whatever. They were the fucking wrong engineering plans. 2 weeks later, we find out our lovely apartment layouts don't fucking work because that shit does not get demolished anymore, and this shit does.
On large projects, you have so many people working on the designs, on analysis. You have a structural model, MEP model, architectural model. You have software that specializes in sprinkler design. So
yes.
The complexity is massive, and files simply are not delivering what people need. So that's where Speckle comes in.
We are not the company like, you know, the LinkedIn story that goes now. LinkedIn is using all your data to like kind of train its AI. Like, we're not those guys. We're essentially the guys that give you the data to do your own thing. In our past lives, we were doing a lot of that verticalization ourselves for companies like Arup or where we worked in the past. Now we realize that, okay, you know, there's a bigger service we can bring to AC, which is giving the right foundations for others to build these vertical solutions like embedded carbon calculators, costing estimators,
Issue tracking.
A
few presenters say, well, Speckle helped us automate 70% of the, I don't know, structural modeling or
BIM
generation from Grasshopper into Revit, because, you know, that was a very tedious task, and with Speckle they almost entirely automated it.
Like, you know, Speckle is the best 3D data platform for developing web applications for.
We believe the community that we've built around Speckle to be the strongest assets that we have, and while people can take some of the open source code, build on top of it, you know, or build a clone of Speckle, the community, the trust that we've built with them is not something you can build, you know, overnight. So that's definitely something that helps us sleep well at night.